All right.
We're live.
Keys to home.
Yeah.
Y'all had your fancy glasses, so I had to get mine.
Mine aren't fancy.
I don't know if mine are fancy. They're just average Mark.
All right, so we are
average.
into April. First quarter is done. What have you guys been doing this last week, or what do you have plans for the weekend, or what's going on in the world?
Lance, kick it off.
Well, business-wise, this week was pretty interesting. Monday and Tuesday, a lot of consternation, like what's going to happen. Of course, this broadcast on Monday morning, so this is the week prior. So the truce had been signed. Who knows what will happen by the time you see this? But
right,
the ceasefire had been signed, and oil dropped to $80-some a barrel, and interest rates for a couple of hours went. I mean, when I say they went super low, they dropped back considerably.
They dropped out the bottom. They tanked.
Yeah, they tanked as much as 0.25% better. But what does that mean when they got up to 6.75 or 6.5? So they dropped back a little bit, and I had a pretty crazy Wednesday trying to track down and get some of these things changed for people. But by noon, it was already being reeled back, and we lost what is called we lost all the gains, so to speak. So I got a couple in, so that worked out well. A lot of applications. I mean, a lot of people are acting. I mean, they got spring fever. So
yep, that's what I'm saying too.
This weekend, I'm gonna go ahead.
What's this weekend?
I'm gonna.
No, what are you doing this weekend?
Be a grease monkey for a little bit. I'm excited.
Okay, on your car, one of the kids' cars, or which car? One of yours or kids?
One of my big ones.
Oh, big bus. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I have to say really quickly, I was carded for a drink the other night, and they asked me, like Tennessee, it's like they card everyone unless you look like you're under 90. That's the law. And so they look at it and they had to type it in, and they're like, what are those last two digits? And mind you, this was like at a grocery store. So it was a younger person who was doing it. And I said 6'7", and they just busted out like that. So my whole birth year is a thing now. We're going to the Highland Games in Tullahoma tomorrow. It's like I said, we record this ahead.
Are you competing?
Yeah. Are you
haggis?
No.
Are you a contestant?
I would do the sword dance or one of the dances before I ate haggis or threw a caber. I know where my role is here. I do want to share some stats with you guys since we were talking about stats and what's been going on. So the ice storm affected a lot of things. Lance, share really quick what you just told me that it affected that I didn't know, the Tennessee ice storm.
Oh, we have our IRS has extended through May 22nd in a lot of counties. There's a certain amount of counties. It's like 22 counties in Middle Tennessee that were affected by the ice storm. We now have an extension of a month and a week.
I probably don't.
Yeah, I'll look it up while we're talking.
Because I didn't get smackdown down here. Okay, but for those of you who think you were impacted, for sure, I would say Davidson County. If you live in Davidson County, but Lance will get the link. Maybe you can put it in the comments on the show or something. Okay, so that affected business. We talked about how the kickoff of a kerfluffle affected business as well. And so we hadn't been able to get a really clear picture of a lot of the stats going on. I had a closing yesterday, went under contract, pre-list, have a buyer under contract, getting ready to list another listing, and have 2 buyers to follow up with Lance on, and then another buyer, see if they're ready to move too. My nose is tickly. I got to sneeze.
I am too all of a sudden.
We are still in a neutral market, but March is showing stronger activity. Inventory was up 16.7% year over year, but demand has also picked up, which is good. Closings were up 6% March over March, and they were up 23.4% March over February.
Wow.
That's really
solid.
good.
Those
And
are
that's
solid.
what we were talking about. Like people are like, okay, this is what it is, right? Pending sales were up 30% year over year. Months of inventory dropped from 4.7 in February to 4.0 in March. So what does that mean? It means if every buyer out there bought, it would take 4.7 months and now only 4.0 months for the inventory to be absorbed by the buyers. So showing homes are being absorbed faster despite more listings coming on. So had we had this more of a static number of listings, we would have had even more edging neutral towards buyer market or seller market. So price is also stabilizing. I know Lance is going to talk to this, but in March, pricing began to stabilize. Price per square foot increased 2.1% from last month, and it was flat year over year. Don't love flat, but I also don't love huge ups and downs. Average sold price increased 3.8% month over month, and the median sold price increased 1.6%. Homes are still taking 50. This is on the Middle Tennessee market, 53 days on market to sell. Again, those are the ones that are more aggressively priced. If you want your home to sell faster, it's going to sell at the same price. You know what I mean? But get it marketed well as a coming soon, put it on the market, do your open houses, get the word out there and price it efficiently. It may not be those 53 days. So keep that in mind when you find the house you want that you're trying to sell your house to buy, if you're not using HomeLight or one of the other companies like them. So sellers are averaging about 96% of their original list price.
That's good to know.
Slightly improved from February. Now, do you guys remember 2 weeks ago I talked about my sold status?
Yeah.
Percentage? I think
Yep.
97% was the lowest I went. And that was back in 23 where people were very aspirational. So I'm still running 99 to 100 because by and large, I'm still having my sellers be very realistic. And apparently my very forthright discussions with them are helping them, you know. A thing that they're noting is worth watching in April is interest rates. The 10-year treasury, which mortgage rates closely follow, has moved down in the last couple of days. This is a couple of days ago. That wouldn't impact March data, but if that trend holds, then hopefully that helps keep this going and growing into April and May, which is a very hot time of year regardless. Even though Tennessee is more temperate and we stay busy year round, we still have a little surge in that May, June, July time period. So overall, March was stronger than February. We want to see that continue. Buyers are active, but being still very selective, which is what I'm telling my sellers. And you know, my listing that I have coming up is at a very modest price point, and the competition for it price wise is like it's $11.75 ish square foot, and the competition for it is new construction 3-bed 2-bath of 1040 square foot, but not great curb appeal. Like the little cottage that I have, it's got a covered front porch, it's got a deck, it's on 2.29 of acres, so it's not a teeny lot that you're butting up against neighbors. In fact, it's got a nice hedgerow so you don't even see your neighbors, and across the street it's woods. And this is something that's probably going to get AI clipped, and if it doesn't, I'll clip it. It's a 2-bedroom flex room with 2 baths. Now, what does that mean when you see that on a listing? It means that the perk for the septic system, you have to have 100 field lines per bedroom, and you have to have a backup field of the same. So a 2-bedroom, 200 field lines, and a backup 200. And it can't be where there's a well, a stream, disturbed soil. So this lot has an old well on it that could be reinvigorated, and it's got a big tree. So because it perks for 2 bedrooms, I cannot legally market it as a 3-bedroom. So you can say it's a 2-bedroom and a flex room. And if I showed you the floor plan, you would not be able to determine between 2 rooms, if one was bedroom A or one was bedroom B on a regular 3-bedroom, if it was on sewer, which one was which. because it's a flex room that can be an office, a bedroom, a sitting room, whatever, but you cannot legally call it a bedroom because of the perk. So when you see that, that's something to know. But that's also sometimes why I set my search for 2-bedroom, because there's very few 2-bedroom houses built.
That's interesting. I didn't jump in right away on that after you were done talking there, Jennifer, because this is really sinking in for me. People are not waiting around, and they're not, based on the numbers that you just laid out to me. You know, look, people are not sitting on the sidelines any longer. Is what it
they're
sounds.
Ready.
They
want
ready.
to buy.
They
just need to see something that is worth buying. That's
right.
why aspirational pricing, this is not the time for it.
Right. And not only that, but look, I'm sorry, but 6%, 7% interest rate is not a reason to not buy. Stop thinking that is a reason to not buy. Okay. Yeah. You don't have, here's the reason why I'm saying this. And yes, I am animated on it. And the reason why is because what is the supply on the market? If you're going to sit there and think, oh, I'm just going to wait for a different interest rate, and the supply on the market is dropping, you're never going to get into this market, period.
Yeah. And the only reason that there is a supply is because people have been waiting for an interest rate drop. And like we have been saying for a year and a half now, when the rates drop,
there's
inventory is going to be short. We are short inventory.
Right. And you want to already, if there's a house that fits what you're looking for, and it's your forever home, maybe maybe it's a stepping stone.
Yeah.
You want to be in that house before the interest rate drops, and because that's the home. If you expect that home to be around because the interest rate drops, you're asking however many families have saved that listing, have that same mentality that you have, that is waiting for. You need to get ahead of that. The other thing that comes to my mind when you were talking is other than the numbers that you just laid out, this is my personal opinion. I'm taking my coaching hat. I'm going to twist it that way a little bit. But, and this is political, Jerome Powell is out in May.
Sure is. And that's part of it too. And let me ask you, from a finance point of view, as a homeowner, what happens when the price of your house goes up? You have earned equity. So are you wanting to sit on the sidelines, or do you want to be ready when that house gets in? Would you rather buy the house now at $450,000, and then as everybody starts getting in the market, even if you're not going to sell soon, then get in the market and then have it go up to $465,000? And here's the other thing: if you're like, oh, but I need my house that I'm going to sell, I need more money from it to buy the next house. Well, guess what? They're going up together.
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you this, Jennifer. Do you guys, and this is also for you too, Lance, do you guys think that because there's a large number of buyers sitting on the sidelines, we are starting at the numbers that you pointed out, 23%. Read that number, that percentage again. It was 23% year over year increase in from March to March.
23.4 closings were up 6% year over year, and 23.4% more than in February. Now, some of that was the closings were lower in February because people weren't running around in the ice storm contracting.
Okay,
it was a double dip.
My question for the both of you is 23% month over month increase. Small amounts of homes on the market. Do you expect that we won't see 2022 again? We're not going to see that. But do you expect that this is going to be an enhanced opportunity for sellers to increase the cost of their homes, knowing that there's going to be a large number of buyers coming in, knowing that there was an increase of 23% month over month? Do you guys expect a frenzy, a minor frenzy? Let's call it that.
So a couple of things. Buyers, I don't think are ever going to be that crazy again, nor should they, because some of them are getting burned. I've told you that there are some houses, not my clients haven't had it, where they've sold and had to break even or brought very little to the table.
Yeah.
Some of them have had to bring to the table. All of mine so far have had proceeds returned on their purchase, right?
Yeah.
But buyers are not willing to get into the house where they may have to then turn around and bring money to the table because they sold it for too crazy. But buyers are incredibly discriminating. And I do think that we are going to see competitive markets for buyers. Get yourself together, save up some money so you may not have to ask as much from the seller, whether it's closing costs or your agent's compensation. And if it's a competitive market, by God, I would think that's when you would want a Sherpa, an agent, to guide you through it instead of trying to go on your own by saving that money. You know what I mean? And then the other part of that is if you are a seller and you're going to be, know that you're going to be selling, especially if you're buying, you might want to consider doing that now. Be looking very hard at homes that would fit your needs before they escalated up. But if you're going to wait because you want more money from your house or you haven't seen it yet, you better get your house in tip-top shape. That was another thing I wanted to share. We talked about when you walk up to the house, things that make you go, oh, I don't know. Dead plants, burned out light bulbs, the doorbell. For Mark, it was the grass situation. But that makes him go, huh. The other thing is odors in the home. And when you have Skyped and video showings, which I've done because I, military or out of town clients, you can't see that as much. But is there a strong aroma? Like, do you do fish fries or do you fry grease or do you, God help you if you smoke or have a cat, that we call that a $30,000 cat, or, smoking, take 33, a good chunk off. But even just a cleanliness, like Tim's house in Ohio that he's getting ready to sell, it's been clean, but now it has been deep cleaned because that's what I've been doing. I've been wiping down the baseboards and getting rid of old dust in places that you don't usually get to. We painted the walls, which gives it a freshness. All those things. They increase your value. Like I told the buyer that we've got a lot of competition with these little new construction houses. I said, you have got to make your house be one of the 5 that they say, I wanted to see these houses. And one of the 10 overall that they might look at when they go see houses. So we need to look at your curb appeal. We need to make it very homey and priced right.
So let's throw this. And Lance, I know you're probably chomping at the bit to talk.
All right, brother.
But I'm going to throw this out. I love the fact that you talked about odors in the home, Jennifer. I think that is one of the for me because I'm always looking for what would be the next opportunity to buy a rental property, and increase my portfolio in that sense. Number one, I've said this before. If I come up to a house that I'm interested in purchasing as part of my portfolio, and I see exactly what you just laid out: dead grass, dead leaves, dead blah blah blah. The outside,
dead house plants, dead flowers outside.
Yeah, the curb appeal on that house. I immediately tell my realtor, take $15,000 off the price, because the amount of work that can go into landscaping, getting the house presentable, is $15,000. That's what it's worth. You're talking about replacing doing landscaping and putting new plants and trees in, or taking that stuff out. That's not cheap. It's expensive.
But if you're the seller and you're doing it yourself, smarter, and you're going to gain that money back without having to expend it.
Right. And it may not be $15,000. That may be an exaggeration, but it's based on, there is a certain amount that I do tell them, okay, take it off. Okay. Secondly, you walk into the home and you smell things that, an odor, and you're immediately asking yourself, at least I am, did they have pets in here? Is the subflooring messed up? What else? one else
Yep.
can, you got to think, people that are they're selling your home. How would you react if you walked in? What you're waking up in your buyer's shoes, and you're walking into your own home? How would that person? How would you react if you experience the same thing? So I just did some quick research. I love the idea of doing this. A professional indoor air quality test, national average costs $400 to $500. It will test for all of the different types of odors, aromas that are in the house, including for mold. You can
Yeah,
now
and
they
that's
can go
becoming
upwards. Yep.
air quality is becoming a more commonly. It's not. I wouldn't say it's even above 50%, but more buyers are doing it than ever have in the past. And
Correct.
also, in my seller's defense, sometimes you have nose blindness. So if I, as your potential listing agent, come in and go, I'm not trying to offend you, for God's sakes. I'm trying to get your business. So why would I tell you something like your hair's a mess, your house smells?
Basic. This is the information that I got. Basic testing, $285 to $563 for general pollutants. In comprehensive testing can be expensive, can exceed $1,000. But you can test for mold, asbestos, just volatile or organic compounds, and radon, which I know radon can be a big deal, especially in soil. I think it's a soil.
It comes from the rock crevices and the underground compartments, and it is a bigger problem in Tennessee.
Yep.
And I was kind of buying my house as is, so we weren't. It was you can test on your own and mitigate on your own, but it's a good thing to test for during your sales process, because if there is radon, then the seller is almost always going to have to fix it, because the next buyer is going to want it fixed too.
Right.
And it's not. It can be a couple $1,000s, but buyers hear it and they're like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So let's lay this out. You're selling a $450,000 house, but you don't want to spend $350 for a test.
Well, some sellers don't want to do things ahead of time, or they don't want to do inspections ahead of time, because what bothers you may not bother me.
Right.
And
That's
so leave
true.
it to the buyer to test and see what they want to do. But if something has been brought to your attention, if you have the margins to do it, and sometimes that is the problem. These people have bought their house too high, so they quite frankly don't have the $3,000 to fix a radon or whatever. But that's why the deep cleaning, and that's even the thing like the light bulbs.
Right.
I try and tell people to put all the same light bulb, and there's a specific one, I want to say it's soft white, throughout the whole house, because when you walk under different lights, it gives you a perspective of, is this room dirty, or is this like, it gives you a different feeling. So those things are really important on it. Mark, what have you been seeing, kind of speaking of money from your house, and speaking of the World Cup? I gave you an idea of maybe making $25,000, but you decided it was not a good deal, because sometimes even though it's a good opportunity to make money, it's not a good opportunity for you. And we were talking pre-air that, especially when you're in debt and you're stressed about it, or you're achieving your goal and you want to go harder, you might be presented with an opportunity. And how do you analyze, is this worth the risk to have this money?
Yeah.
And it's a personal opinion for, everybody involved, but tell us what we were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, what Jennifer's talking about is the FIFA World Cup is coming to Dallas. That's where I live. And right now, short-term rentals, we're hearing that some short-term rentals are going for $25,000 per month. There is a rule out there called the Augusta Rule.
Check into that.
Yeah, I did. The Augusta Rule gives homeowners the ability to not report income made from their rental property up to 14 days. And so you can avoid taxes within that 14-day window. Okay?
Time out a minute. It's called the Augusta rule, and it's 14 days because it goes to the Masters tournament and the House of Rep and the senators. When that was put in, they were doing a revision of the tax code, and they're like, we don't want to tax our own money. Hold on, we got to have a caveat. Which,
do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah,
exactly.
That benefits all of us little peons as well. So yeah, so potentially 25,000 for the month, so 12.5 for 2 weeks, tax free. But you decided.
Yeah, I looked into it, and this goes to a greater conversation, and kind of falls into that same realm as I'm going to take a 401k loan to help pay off my debt. Number one, the larger conversation to this is the shiny object. The shiny quick silver bullet. I get out of debt if I just do this. But you're focusing in where a coach can come in is to focus in not on just the shiny object, but if we're willing to accept the shiny new object over here, then we have to accept the fact that we may take on risks that are involved with accepting that shiny new object. So it would be great to know that you have $12,500 coming in. Everyone wants that, but what are you risking when it comes to accepting that? Are you open to whatever might happen to your home in those 2 weeks? Are you
when those distraught losers come home?
Yeah,
or those celebratory winners come home?
Or the loud, the noise, the HOA violations, just as we get very tunnel visioned into, I get $12,500, but oh my gosh, I didn't realize now I've got a problem with my HOA. I've got damage to the you don't know who these people are. And very probably don't have a whole lot of time, assuming that you can research who these people are. So,
Mark, who cares? Money is most important.
I know.
Hey,
It's
Mark,
money.
I have a question for you. Something I heard the
Wait,
other day.
I want to post about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So I heard.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
I want your opinion on something as a financial coach. Okay. It
Oh,
has
here
been
we
your
go.
dream to follow your soccer team on a World Cup. Just set the stage, right? That's one of your lifetime goals and dreams. Like people have dreams of going to every baseball stadium. So it's been your dream. And this is a very good year for your team. They might not win it all, but they're going to go a long way with it. And it's looking good. You own your house free and clear. Would you sell your house to follow your team?
No.
People are doing that.
Yeah. And it's what Lance just said. Money. Well, as you know, what are you willing to accept? It could go. I'm assuming. Hopefully, I'm not dropping the opinion that something bad is going to happen. But you also, if you're willing to accept this, you've got to be willing to accept the other outcome. So
now here's my next question: if
Yeah.
you knew that you had a terminal illness and were going to die in a year, would that change your answer?
Well, that's
This is a life goal, a bucket dream. You have the ability, but you have to sell your house to do it.
I'm not doing that. I'm just simply not doing that. I don't know, what the following year means or the following, I just, for me, I've worked hard. I can talk to it from my perspective. I've worked hard to get to where I'm at, and I respect the stuff that I have. It's been,
but if you're debt free and you want to do this without debt,
well, here's the conversation, Jennifer. I'm a good steward of what I've been blessed with. And I'm not willing to offer that up. Now that may be
so no YOLO for you.
Yeah. I mean, how is 12,500. I think we're off on a tangent a little bit.
No, I just was curious about from a financial coach, because I literally heard discussions about that this week.
Yeah, I'm not doing that because I'm a good steward of what I own, and I'm not subjecting those assets to whoever.
Yeah.
That would be disrespect. In my mind, that's disrespectful to the asset that I've owned. Now, how quickly can I make $12,500 up doing something else? That's your question. That's the question that we ask. And I mentioned the fact that we always look for a quick silver bullet to get us out from where we're at. When you take that path, you lose the opportunity to grow. When you bring in something else to alleviate the problem, you lose the opportunity to grow. And many, I've talked a lot to a lot of clients, and asked the following question: how is it going to feel when you take the steps that you're taking, and a year and a half down the road, you look at what you've done as that decision, and you ask yourself, why did I make that decision? The consequences of pulling money, for example, out of your 401k, you're losing compounded growth over time. You're supplanting your habits and changing your habits for a quick silver bullet. It's the same aspect of debt consolidation. The reason why I'm not coaching gives people another alternative to debt consolidation. Debt consolidation, all that does is gives you another loan. It picks up the debt from here and moves it over and puts it down. It makes you feel like you've done something. You haven't done anything.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all about the steps and the plans that you were teasing us with about pre-air, about like the stats and how you get things done. Lance, what else do you have to share about like this quarter and what spring's looking like? I think you said you were getting a flurry of activities in. Anything else? What's your thoughts on the changing of the Fed? Do you think that'll impact it at all, or be a slower over the course of the summer? Or, I mean, we don't have magic balls, but what's kind of your thoughts going into spring? Oh, hold on.
Mute.
There you go, sorry.
What?
It was muted somehow. Go ahead.
I've been doing this for 26 years. And somehow I've been right about some of the stuff. So here comes Nostradamus.
It's logic.
So,
it's knowledge.
Yeah, it's cycles. This is what I think is going to happen. I think that the Iran thing is going to be resolved. I think that oil is going to go to some of the lowest it's ever seen. I think that I have heard that Jerome Powell cannot leave because he's under investigation right now. So until the investigation is wrapped up or dropped, he cannot be removed. I suspect the investigation will be dropped. He will be replaced. The combination of, for example, Wednesday when the ceasefire was announced, or Tuesday evening, the stock markets went up 1,300% or something. It was something insane. And we got like 4,800 mark, 48,000 mark, and 50 had been like in a day, right? Oil dropped significantly. So I think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see interest rates plummet. I think this summer is going to see interest rates in the mid fives and possibly in the high fours with buy downs. Jennifer talked earlier in the conversation about go ahead and repeat it, Jennifer. For every home that's for sale, or for every buyer, there's how many homes for sale. Will you repeat that?
Oh, the stat 2 weeks ago was 2 to 1.
Say it as a sentence.
So
For
for
every
every buyer out there were 2 houses.
okay.
Wow.
Now
That
we're
is an
edging
accurate
off that
stat.
because we had some good closings.
Yeah, that stat, I
Flip.
want to disagree with it. You can turn it around, you can flip it and say, I'm going to add a word to it. For every active buyer,
Mhm.
right? We have, if you drive around wherever you're watching this from, wherever you're listening from, whether you're in Dallas in the whether you're in Dallas or you're in Franklin County, which Jennifer, I'm sorry to tell you, is not a disaster area. You were correct. So
I
you have
knew
to
we
pay your
weren't.
taxes on time. If you're in Jennifer's daughter and you're in the DC area, if you're near Langley, or if you're in Florida watching this,
Columbus.
everywhere
Pop.
you look, there are very large scale apartments going up, not 100 units, not 300 units. We're talking 15, 20, 2,500 unit properties going up. There are
Yeah.
more people than ever that need a place to live. Okay. There is a supply and demand feature outside of what we're talking about, is that people have to have some place to live. And because there's a perception that they can't afford a home, they are going into apartments, which are not cheap. In our
Mhm.
last podcast, I don't know if we caught the AI about it, but we'll give it a moment to say it again. But Jennifer said something that was very insightful and very smart. And it was, Mark asked her, why aren't people moving out of their apartments? And she had an answer for that. You want to tell us that again, Jennifer, to
No, go
paraphrase
ahead.
it?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't have the answer. It basically was that people want to live someplace where they have all the amenities and all the
Oh, yeah.
luxuries
Yeah.
of life, and they're not willing
The
to give that up
Pinterest
to have a
factor.
piece of the pie. What did you
Yeah,
call
the
it?
Pinterest. The Pinterest factor. That's why I
So
urge my
good.
friends with girls, especially when they go to college, don't do your daughter a disfavor by making her dorm room super cute bougie with all the things she has, because she's going to expect that when she gets out in her first job, and she's not
Yep.
going to have it.
So I think what we're going to have, I think there is a ton of pent up demand. I think there is a perception that things aren't affordable. I think there's a message from one side of the aisle, and I don't mean politically, I mean positivity versus
Yeah.
negativity. There's this message that you can't. Look at you, but look at what I have, and look at me and be. When I say
Mhm.
that, I'm using the phone. And I've fallen to that too. I'm a bus guy. I look at other people's buses and I'm like, "Grr." But I'm like, wow, mine are paid for. And I don't have that stressor, right? And I don't have to live by the emissions rules that do people. Anyway, um, I think there's a ton of pent up demand, and I think we're going to start to feel that, Jennifer and Mark. We're going to start to see that this summer.
I'm
Interest
still,
rates are going to come down. Market, I think, and people are going to they're going to say, oh, I can buy, and then they're going to need to talk to a Mark on how to manage their money so that they can not only have the house, but they can have reality and how to get
They
there.
need to talk to Mark now.
Yeah. That's what I think is going to happen. So Nostradamus, whatever, I think it's going to be really fun and stressful as we move into that.
they need
And
to talk.
then
Yeah.
that will lead to higher prices very quickly and
Yeah.
People having a lot of equity.
Yeah.
I
I'm worried
think-
about how busy it might be.
Mhm.
I think they need to talk to any one of us,
Yeah.
because honestly, I agree, Lance. I think we've been waiting for this for 4 years. Well, maybe since 4 years. 2022 was the height of the
Mhm.
the pricing.
Height of everything. I looked it up this morning. Fuel was $4.15 on average. That was on average. Now, you're seeing $4 around here today, but this is a spike, and there were other spikes with hurricanes and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I get this question. I would say probably of the leads and the clients that I'm working with, I would say anywhere from 85 to 95% of the time it is, I want to buy a house. And but the clients that I'm working with, or the clients the leads that I'm receiving, they're just not yet ready. It's not yes, it's when, and that's, but I agree with what you're saying. I think we're looking at, I just feel it. I feel it in myself. I've actually, my own self have been out looking at different, I've started to think, man, maybe I'd like to flip a house because I'm in that position to be able to do it. I've never done it. And I've been starting to think, well, maybe I'd like to do that and see what it's, see if this is something that I would enjoy. I've actually gone out to sites and started looking. So this is.
I'm going to give you a tip on that, Mark. If
Yeah.
you decide to do that, I know you've got a realtor, and this is not about a realtor in Texas. Get a female opinion.
Yes, 100%.
Because you have to have both, and God bless, we think differently, y'all. Newsflash.
Yeah, no,
The other thing you just said, that they're like, oh, I want to buy a house. And I'll be like, just like I say to my vendors I meet, I work throughout Middle Tennessee, and I'm like, but do you? Because I work way out to the country and everything else. And so if somebody says, oh, I want to buy a house, I'll be like, but do you? Because you're not going to buy the house that your parents had that's their fourth or fifth house in. You're going to buy what was their starter house, equivalent to today.
It's weird. Mark and I just got muted. Who did that?
I muted myself
Okay.
because I was hearing some echoing. Yeah. But right, Jennifer, on that topic, it's, people are losing the opportunity to build, or I mean, not build. People are losing the opportunity to have an appreciating asset because they're failing to understand that they don't have to have every single thing that was set up in their college dorm room, and I need a bougie $400,000 room, and so you.
And again, what's the interest on rent?
You're losing
100.
Yeah. You're losing the opportunity to build wealth because you're expecting a bougie setup. And yes, I'm 59 years old and I said the word bougie. So there you go.
But the other thing I tell my clients is I'm like, what are you doing? If homes on a slow year go up 3 to 5%, what are you doing to increase your income? So for your income to debt ratio by 3 to 5% yearly.
Yeah. So as a career coach, and I have several clients that I'm working with on their careers, finally are starting. Some of them have finally gotten to the point where it's like, I've been in this position for X amount of time. I'm kind of I've reached an expert status. People come to me all the time about their problems. I've kind of plateaued, and they're starting to ask the question, I'd like to make some more money. And so it's like, okay, well, let's build out the framework to get you to the next step on your career. And so that's a really important framework for people.
Or,
if you have reached a point where people are coming to you and you're like a subject matter expert in your field, you've probably plateaued in your role, and you need to take the next step.
The other way, if you are, set in your career, you're doing well, the other way to increase your income, we all know it. It's investments, it's real estate, it's adding a second income stream from some fashion. So I think we're getting close to our mark on time. Anybody have any more inputs before we run away from the day?
I do have one last one. We're 5 days away from taxes. And
except for the people in lucky counties.
Yeah. By the time this drops, we're going to be a couple days away from taxes. Please, I'm asking people, do not think that you can just avoid filing your taxes. It's illegal, especially if you are trying to avoid something and you're intentionally trying to avoid it. That's illegal. File your taxes or file an extension.
Well, in the same vein, I heard about the mandatory draft that's happening in December, and I was like, what? Oh,
What?
And what they found out over the last 39 years since we've had all men have to register for selective service between the ages of 18 and 26. Last year, they discovered that over 70% of people aren't doing it, as if they're not going to be discovered that they didn't. So last summer, Congress in one of the bills passed a law that said, well, okay, we're not going to send out the postcard. We're just going to auto-register everyone, which makes sense. And so that's been turned into a big fear-mongering campaign of that everyone's being registered for a draft.
So true story, one of my cousins, and we have a proud military service.
It ain't gonna happen. So go ahead.
I lost your volume. There you go. We lost your volume for a second there. But yeah, you can't avoid the draft. You can't avoid taxes. True story. One of my cousins, it's a newsflash. Guys aren't always super mature at 18.
Really? I know I wasn't. I mean,
you don't always get your ducks in a row.
Jennifer, I think that is the number one statement. We've got to start a list of phrases, and that is a number one, because I didn't grow up until I was 50.
Yeah, you don't have your ducks in a row. So bless his heart, one of my cousins, the postcard came when he turned 18. And I think he was still in his senior year. There's a lot going on in your senior year. And the postcard got into the ether. He didn't think about it. Like he said, oh, and I'll look at this later. His parents didn't realize it had come and that he had not done it. And it was literally, I think, 3 to 5 years later that they were getting a new stove or something. And it had slid under the stove. And they realized he had never done it. And it has affected his ability to have different jobs because it does flag.
Wow.
I think when we titled this, I think when we titled this episode, the phrase that you just said, 18 men at 18 years old are not mature. I think that needs to be the tagline. That is going to generate.
You are not mature. But you know what? To be honest, most girls are not either. I will tell you the girls that tend to be. Ready? Tend to be, not always, the oldest daughters.
Yeah.
Not always, but they tend to be.
Yeah, I think we need to lead with that title. You're not mature at 18.
Or just you're not mature.
Exactly. And then ask for comments. When was the age that you felt like you finally matured? I'm admitting 50.
I'm a Toys R Us kid. I refuse to grow up.
Yes, I tap into my youthfulness every single day. Yes. Sometimes.
And on that note, I'm going to go hack down hedges.
And sometimes in front of the mirror myself.
Yeah.
How far? Okay, we're done with our recording. Thanks, everybody.